Hello and welcome back to Dev Game Club, weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duval, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who's quite a serious character, though he likes to show off and is too eager to compete.
Tim Longo.
I mean, that might be what it takes, Tim. So I'm not going to judge, but I believe that was a description of George, right? The sheriff?
George Woodman.
George Woodman, yes. George Woodman. From Welcome Back, Kotter, maybe? Who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, and then when he takes it, maybe you haven't seen this yet then, or I don't know if you remember, but yeah, there's a troubling scene where he has to show his bare back.
Oh, no, I don't think I've seen that yet. I don't remember it. So I look forward to that.
Yeah.
We're, of course, talking about Deadly Premonition. Before we discuss the game, just want to refresh people on the stuff I said last week. We were recording this on the 15th and therefore to be out on the 16th of October. So I can't really tell you about streaming Portal 2 on Tim's Twitch channel tonight, but we will again next week on October 22nd. And then on October 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern, we will be on Tim's Twitch doing our first ever, and maybe last ever, live show recording on the streams. So it'll be just us talking. We'll interact a little bit with the audience. So show up and show us how important it is to you that we do another one of those. It is a reward for last year's Defeating Games for Charity. And we figured we better get it done before January rolls around. They've actually come up with a date already, and if you go to the Discord, there's a link to apply to be a streamer on that if that's something that interests you. And I believe Phil Salvador from the Video Game History Foundation also retweeted that information out, or I'll put it on Blue Sky, whatever that is. I don't know what they are on Blue Sky. So there's
repost, I guess.
Yeah, repost. Yeah. Anyway, so it's out there. You can find the link if that's something you're interested in, and I'm sure the date is there as well. I don't have it in front of me.
I think it's the 24th and 25th of January. But
okay, yeah, that's what I had in mind, but I didn't want to commit. So Tim commits. He says the 24th and 25th. I'm sure with his memory, that's perfectly accurate.
Yeah, I'm sure that's totally right. Yeah, they're already going. It's awesome. So yeah, definitely set aside that, and it is for charity, so hopefully people contribute. And yeah, it's a fun weekend, I will say, to have everyone coming together and streaming and rating to from stream to stream for 2 days straight, like literally 24 hours. 24 hours after 24 hours. So
yeah. It's like a 36-hour thing, right? I think it goes more than 24 hours. It's around the clock. Yeah.
Right.
So
because we have people in different time zones like Kyle and stuff that can take over, and Art and others take kind of the midnight shift in some cases and go pretty late. So yeah.
Yep. So that's and then all the VODs I think get uploaded later to Defeating Games for Charity channel somewhere. So it's all visible later as well. I didn't mention that next week we will be discussing Portal 2 on that live show recording, which I wanted to make sure I made clear. Okay, let's dig into the Twin Peaks of it all. We're playing Deadly Premonition, of course. And Tim, happily, I did this maybe 6 months ago, but what'd you say? Just last night has rewatched the pilot from Twin Peaks.
Yeah, just by chance, to be honest. Like it's actually not. Jen was super irritated because I kept taking notes while we were watching, and she was like, "What are you doing?" But it was just by chance. We had talked for months now about restarting it, and decided to do it in October, kind of for spooky reasons. And then we just happened to be playing Deadly Premonition at the same time. So it was not planned. I'm not watching it because of the podcast, but luckily and ironically, it works out well because I'm able to, yesterday I played played the game up to past the Sawmill, and then we watched the episode. So everything was very fresh in my mind. As a little bit, Brett, I guess, probably put it on Discord, but the reason we're a day behind this week is, just to cover that very quickly, is I actually had to start the game over and buy it on a different platform that was going to be more stable and convenient. So I couldn't get it really running on any version on Steam that I had previously got. So I'm on Switch now, but because of that, I had to start from the beginning and basically play it, in a short amount of time up to that point. So yeah, it was very fresh. I wanted to bring up Twin Peaks because obviously we know that it was a main influence. Brett and I are big Twin Peaks fans, I would say, in general. So so is Jen, my wife, who's watching it with me. And I just had forgotten how good that, the pilot for that show really is. Like, it is really a perfect episode of a TV show and a perfect opening. And it is. I'm very conflicted on, is this game an homage or is it just a little too much of a ripoff? Because now, of course, it's not a one for one, and you can definitely see the influences and such. And Swery has, the team has their own spin for sure. It's definitely, and you can tell that it is not from North America, right? It is definitely a product of its region and its culture, which is great, and it brings its own spin to things. Not even spin; it brings its own identity to things. However, there are some things that in the game, I'll give you some quick examples. There are some things in the game where I made notes before watching the show, rewatching the show, where I was like, "That's so weird. That's such a specific choice." For instance, there's multiple times when York is either almost looking at the camera or looks directly at the camera, it seems like, during a cutscene, and just does this creepy smile. And it's creepy because it's Uncanny Valley. I don't know if it's intended to be creepy. I think they just wanted him to smile, but it ends up being creepy.
I think it's both, right? I do think that I think they are leaning into the Uncanny Valley. Some other folks on the Discord have agreed. I think that's the, when you have the Uncanny Valley and you can't surmount it, I think it's a brave choice to embrace it. And I mean, a lot of people wouldn't, at the time, did not think to do that. And a lot of those early games that had humans in them, but that, and like you said, we still haven't climbed out of this valley. We're much better, but at the time, people were still trying to do it. And I admire that as well, because that's how you get to it's good enough someday. But it wasn't there then, and it could be quite awkward at times where you'd be like, "Geez, I don't know if I want to show this to this is a really good game that I don't want to share with anyone I know who doesn't play games, because they'll never play games if I show
them." It's the context isn't there, right? Because they're like, wait, what is this?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It's similar to like draw-in for distance, a problem that took a while to solve and power to solve, where things would pop in and you'd be driving, you'd be showing somebody a game and they'd be like, wait a minute, that mountain wasn't there a second ago. And you're like, oh yeah, it's there's this thing we call draw distance, and and you have to explain, because we can't draw everything. It doesn't look like the real world, and it would be very distracting to them in a way we just accepted, but I think here they know, like, this looks odd. You cannot tell me that any human being on the planet who has a creative bone in their body would not look at York smiling at the camera like that and think, yeah, this is good.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that they know what they are more than most games, and they do seem pretty self-aware from a very anecdotal perspective of my own. I will say that there's a chance we might be giving them a little bit too much credit, because it could have, I'm not saying that he would have thought it was good or bad as far as quality, but they did choose to make him smile, and there were limitations to that. So did Swery then also say, I want to make him smile because we know it's going to look creepy because of Uncanny Valley, or was it just this is what we have as a smile? Just do it. You know what I mean? Like it's like how self-aware were they of the? Yeah, it's a really good. I missed that in the Discord, that debate. It's a really good question that we'll never know the answer to. But long story short, the reason I bring up that specific example is that Cooper does it multiple times in the pilot, where he looks just like that, and it's a creepy smile. There are specific lines that are, yes, as Brett pointed out in pre-show, we have localization challenges, we have translation to and from and back again, right? Because probably, you know, Sawyer's watching Twin Peaks potentially in, you know, various versions, could be subtitled, could be dubbed, and then also rewriting that line, and then it's localized back into English. So it's like, you know, through many filters. So who knows for sure, but the lines are close enough. And I would never have caught that if I hadn't just watched the episode. So there's, you know, I would say half a dozen maybe. There's a lot of characters that are very on the nose as well. And this is going to sound like I'm criticizing. I'm definitely not criticizing. I'm just more bringing up how much this is Twin Peaks, you know, and as a Twin Peaks fan, I'm okay with that because I like, this game is weird. This game is bonkers in all sorts of ways, and not just story and style ways, and also gameplay ways. So obviously Twin Peaks doesn't have that going for it. Twin Peaks has a big weakness. It's not interactive. Right. So I was just, I guess, long story short, what were some of my other fun examples? There were
I mean, one thing that I did was I went to the diner in this, and I was like, oh, the layout is almost exactly the same.
Yeah, I looked in the window at night, and it was creeping.
Yeah.
So I saw the layout.
Yeah, you get, and we didn't even talk about the fact that you get money for doing things like that, where it's like, oh, you look through a window, you get, you know, $30 or whatever, and the prices of everything are totally weird, which is another translation thing, I'm guessing, because of course in yen. Like you look at something in yen, it's like 1,000,000 yen. You're like, oh my God, that must be crazy expensive. And 1,000,000 yen is like $600 or $6,000 or something like that. Like it's a whole, at least a factor of 1,000 off. Like, so a single yen, I've been playing this Yakuza Like a Dragon game, and it's like, sometimes you'll get 10 yen, you know, when you're searching around on the ground for stuff. And it's like 10 yen is like well less than a penny. You know, so you didn't even find a penny on the ground. You found 10 yen. So like, I think there's also that of like, because like you'll go and you'll get breakfast and a cup of coffee is like $15. And you're like, what? You know, like a cup of coffee at a diner in 2010?
Oh, no, you're right. I think it was $15 coming out of the machine too.
Oh yeah, the machine, right? Yeah, sure.
I bought one out of the machine. It was $15. It didn't even register to me. I just did it. That's funny.
Yeah, and I think that that's partly also a money translation thing of like, what are things in America cost?
That's a good point.
Because yen is like closer to a penny. You know, a yen is closer to a penny than you know. It's like there are other currencies that are like that. It's not the only one, but I definitely I always have to go and translate. You know, sometimes I read books that are translated from Japanese that have money in them, and they actually explain up front when they say this much yen, it's this much money. You know, like. Right. You know, it's this much money, you know,
right.
Because most Americans wouldn't know that off the top. I didn't, you know, it's only because I saw that in one of those books.
Yeah. It's fun to see the influence, of course. And even more fun to have just watched the episode. So it's very fresh. You know, obviously we talked about it the first episode because it's so obvious, but not having seen the show yet, I hadn't realized how much the music juxtaposition to the scenes they also are copying, you know, when it comes to playing off of a certain tone. There's that one song they have that one piece of music they have in the game that is more kind of upbeat, you know, and kind of matter of fact, and they play it. Right. And they play it at times when it is juxtaposing what you're doing or what you're seeing, and you're like, it weirds you out. Well, that's that's Twin Peaks bread and butter. That's
Yeah.
that's like what they're doing all the time, as opposed, with the exception of the somber stuff, and the Julie Cruz stuff. But anyway, so it was very cool, and of course I know in Discord people are talking about it, and I know we talked about last time. I wouldn't say I'm a Twin Peaks aficionado or anything, but I do, I have watched it, the whole thing, many times over the years, and it came out at a formative time in my life too, and we watched it live on television when it was coming out as a family, so it was like a big event. And so I really appreciate this game existing, because it is like, I was going to say time capsule, but it's not a time capsule. What is the sort of term? It's such a unique.
It's like a reenactment almost,
Yeah, it's like someone's. It's almost like someone's doing. I mean, it's not a musical. It's not a musical as a game, but it's like when somebody does the musical version of the movie Waitress. It's like it's like, huh. Okay, all right, you go. That's an interesting choice, but and I've heard that musical is actually very good. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's through it. And I think your localization point is another really good example. It's like, it's gone through all of these filters. It's gone through Sweary's own head and filter, right? It's gone through two different cultures, because obviously, Frost and Lynch's Twin Peaks is very much about Americana and that culture, right? And kind of through this filter, this lens. But then the game has this just weird combination, but also influences. And so I definitely don't want to criticize it for copying too much, because then there's also, they have these moments that are very purely Deadly Premonition, right? And would only occur in this game. Like what's a good example? Or just like the way they talk about rain and the significance of rain. And you haven't gotten to that part yet, I guess, but
I think they talk a little bit about it driving up to the tree. They actually talk.
Oh, maybe so. Well, yeah. After the you'll see it soon once you finish. You'll refresh your memory.
Yeah.
Once the Sawmill, you get a piece of the main antagonist's raincoat, which I didn't know was a raincoat. And they have this whole thing about raincoats.
Oh yeah,
about rain.
Yeah,
and about why nobody goes out in the rain in the Pacific Northwest. I'm like, no, that's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So it's just
you'd have to be housebound a significant part of the year.
Yeah, so it's just such a quaint, weird, interesting, artifact. Yeah, that's probably the better word than time capsule. This game is an artifact of various types that I just really appreciate. Now it's problematic as hell in many ways. We just have to say that. I have to say that. If you haven't played it, be aware. It is definitely of its time, but that's not even an excuse. It's just, yeah. Anyway, it's problematic, but there's just so many unique, weird things about it that go even beyond the show influence.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that is a big part of, what I liked about it at the time. At the time I played this, I actually had just rewatched Twin Peaks.
Oh.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend at the time who hadn't seen it, or maybe hadn't seen all of it, and so I rewatched it with her on Netflix or something, and so I was like, it was very fresh in my mind when I played it in 2010 or 11. I don't remember exactly when. I didn't play it right when it came out, but it might have been later that year. So yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I do remember my Twin Peaks and Deadly Premonition experiences were very close together, and so it was definitely very fresh in my mind at the time.
If you, for any listener who is intending to play, or one might play it someday, or is playing along, even if you've played it before, I definitely, I mean, of course I know the Discord's been talking about the Twin Peaks influence a fair amount, but I highly recommend at least watching the pilot and then playing the game at some point during playing the game, because I do think it amplifies the game in a good way. even though there are definitely a lot of ripoffs, but I think generally okay. Yeah, it's just enough of their own spin, their own version that I buy it. But then it's also a video game, so there's a lot of other elements to it that are not in the show. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we should talk about some of the gamey bits. I mean, we haven't really. Last time we talked a lot about sort of the structure and the kind of tone and the Twin Peaks of it all. Even last week, after we kind of did the long introduction and all of that. So, one of the things I think we need to start turning to is like some of the mechanics. I mean, I don't know if we can.
No.
But some of the major mechanics that we're running into, I mean, all of which we had little bits of last time. There is, so as we talked about, there's an open world aspect to the game, which was the surprise, but it was even more of a surprise once I explained to Tim. No, it's more than you think it is as far as that goes, and we'll get to more of that in a minute. But even if you're just following the linear bits, there's basically a couple of mechanics in there that are ways to sort of, I wouldn't say skill test, but they are kind of like, I mean, they're the sort of, grist of any kind of survival horror game, right? And in this one, there's two. There's one that's like clue gathering. There's a little bit of like the simple blocks and keys type stuff as well, but that hasn't yet been super relevant. There was one puzzle, kind of a dumb chess puzzle, at the hospital. But while you're in the hospital, you also are profiling the body. You are picking up on clues. There was a thing about that, I think, as well in the opening section before you actually get to meet Naomi Watts. I mean, Emily Wyatt or whatever her name is. And the profiling is basically like, well, have you picked up all the information in this scene? Very much like even in a Batman game has this as well. So we've had a number of these kinds of sequences where it's like, it'll tell you basically how many clues you have to find in the environment you're in. And you have to kind of navigate them to, navigate the environment to find those clues. And they're very, I mean, I think we should talk about the scene at the tree as a profiling section, because I think that one actually shows it kind of off pretty well, like how that ties into the narrative and like the cutscenes and like all of that, which also, like I said, feels very Twin Peaks. Do you remember the clues that were there?
Yeah, I think so. The heel, the broken heel,
right? Broken stiletto heel.
Yeah, the symbol in the hand.
That's from the autopsy, but the symbol in the hand is the same as the symbol in the picture of the guy's back.
Yeah, right. That's why the back comes in later.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he also asks to see Emily's back.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a creepy. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't remember. There's maybe something in the tree that I remember knocking out of the tree.
Yeah, you shoot two things out of the tree. One is the stiletto. The other is what is the other one? I'll come back.
Oh,
to
there's
that
a
one.
piece of metal.
Right, like a wood chip with rust on it. And then there's like two broken blades of grass, and York's kind of job is like he's a profiler, and this is the way that you see this knit together. And they don't ask the player to do this. There have been later games, which, especially I think in the indie space, but some other puzzle games like the Golden Idol games, I think, kind of do this, where that kind of activity, even Oberdin has this a bit. That activity of like putting together the clues is like the player is actually doing that and not the character.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that the sorts of clues and conclusions that the profiler comes to in both this and in Twin Peaks are like kind of a bridge too far for most players. Like they're so strange and like it'd be hard to know how to introduce them.
Yes. So I guess this is a little bit debatable with the Twin Peaks comparison, but Deadly Premonition is in the name.
Yes.
And York has something going on
He sure does.
with
Zach.
him, but I don't fully. I mean, I guess they intentionally don't want me to fully understand. I don't know if he is a telepath or what's the term for, I don't know if
An empath or
if
something, you mean?
empath, if he's getting the premonitions or what what the title's referencing. But the profiling, like, I actually, it's I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I do really enjoy those sections, even though you're not technically doing much from
Yeah.
a puzzle solving perspective. They're doing it for you. But I think the presentation's great, and I think that it really makes you feel like you're in this crime drama. um and and he seems to be, like, he's profiling, and he actually talks a fair amount about how good of a profiler he is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But the more and more it happens, the more and more I think what he also is saying is that he has some superpower, that he can actually put these pieces together. At least that's how they present it. Not a superpower, but he's a telepath or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool supernatural side of it. I don't know exactly who Zach is, but I guess Zach is us. But I don't know. Maybe
Sort of
that's
feels
gonna
that
be.
way. Yeah. I will say that question is answered later.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Which is like, that's my
Interesting.
little tease to be like, maybe we do want to play more of this game.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
So I
there is
really
an
like the
answer. There is an
profiling.
answer to that question, and I'm not going to tell you whether your guess is correct, but it does
Okay,
get answered late in the game.
that's right. And to your point, like to the earlier point about how aware of what they're doing are they. I do really appreciate this game does seem to know what it is. Like, it is leaning into the fact, whether it's the limitations of Uncanny Valley, or whether it's just, we're a weird game, and we're gonna go all the way.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate that. The other thing with the profiling that I wanted to mention, I had in my notes, I didn't mention in pre-show, is there. Now, I haven't played Heavy Rain. I know that's kind of a bit of an infamous one. I kind of avoided it because I know that mechanically it's very shallow.
Yeah.
But I feel like I should play it someday.
If
Because I
only
feel
to have the Jason scene. Jason.
I quote that scene. I've never even seen it. Jason, Jason. So I know that that's, like, kind of known to be the not only probably that team's most popular game or infamous game, but also as far as, like, a serial killer type game. There aren't many of those out there. But one thing I've appreciated about this one is that, because true crime is a very common topic in my household, I'll say.
Yeah.
Not by my choice, but it's like, it's constant topic for the family. And so it kind of dawned on me as this profiling stuff was happening in Deadly Premonition, and as I'm playing, that there aren't a lot of games that deal with this head on. Like, because serial killers are bad news,
Yeah. Yeah.
and bad things happen. And typically games don't want to handle that stuff. Now, of course, are they doing it in a ham-fisted way? Of course they are. They don't have the fidelity. There's not the nuance and the seriousness of it. Obviously, isn't their goal. But I just kind of applaud them of, like, yeah, there's some things mentioned in these profiling scenes that are just, stuff that
Yeah.
comes out of Manhunter or
Yeah.
or what's the other Fincher thing?
Zodiac.
Zodiac, or then the other Fincher thing.
7. I don't know.
Seven.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Where you're like, oh man, I wish I could unhear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that one's especially dark. I mean, what is in the box?
Yeah. So anyway, I
do kind of expect that quote to come up at some point. I don't think it does, but it's the sort of thing where you can
it totally would.
You can
totally
feel it
would,
coming.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So the point I wanted to make about the profiling is that, like you said, it doesn't ask a lot of the player other than interact with this environment, investigate, quote unquote, this environment. And there might be some conclusions you draw from that yourself as well. Like, why are these things in the trees, for example? Is that just a mechanical thing? So there might be some things like that. But then, like, the conclusions he draws, you're like, oh, actually, that I would not have thought of that. like, and in fact, George is more the stand-in for the player, I think, at that point, of being like, he kind of says something that naively sounds reasonable to you, and he's a law enforcement officer himself, so you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then York is like, oh no, that's not what happened. And then he like lays out this much more complicated but explaining all the evidence kind of solution, which is, I mean, I think the writing is actually quite good in its goofy way, but quite good in like the level of thought that's been put into like what everything means here.
Yeah.
And that actually gave me at the time, and gives me now, like way more confidence in how this story will be handled from a plot perspective, right? That it's going to be interesting and worth my time. And it's good that happens so early. Like it happens, even in the hospital scene where I think there's like maybe 3 clues on her body that you have to pick up, and then you basically take over the investigation, or York does. Because who knows, maybe you're Zach, Tim.
Yeah. Well, that was my immediate assumption, is that it's just a dual personality kind of thing. But then as I'm driving around now more in the open world section, which we'll get to later, there's those conversations you can trigger while you're driving.
Yeah.
About movies.
Yeah.
I actually have just recently saw Jaws as well. There's one where he goes very deeply into Jaws. He's clearly like a classic movie buff, 70s 80s movie buff. But he's telling Zach about it. So yeah, to your point on writing, those I think were really well written and performed as well. Those little interstitials. Yeah, I think the profiling, though light mechanically, it does the job well, and I do feel like you get to know York's deal more, and the killer's situation, and the victim's situation, and all that stuff. So that was another example I'd forgotten about, when you're in the morgue and he finds I don't know, is it a seed or
it's
whatever,
a seed,
the red. Yeah, and he then takes over control of the investigation, because it's comes that seed he has found in other cases.
Yeah, he pulls like six bags of them.
Yeah, exactly. That literally happens in Cooper
Yeah.
finds the same thing with the letter.
The letter under the
fingernail. Yeah, and it's like, and he literally has the same speech. I'm assuming control. I know that's uncomfortable for you. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So it's like, which is cool. It's fine.
And he calls what's his name, Ferrar's character, Alfred. If you haven't gotten that far, Alfred's the bald.
Oh no, yeah, it's not
forensic
in the pilot.
guy. Yeah, he doesn't come in the pilot.
Right?
He's not far away though. He's quite a character.
Yeah. The other thing I do is I mix up what's in Firewalk with Me and what's was in the pilot too, because they go back.
There's some Firewalk with Me in this as well, because a lot of the associative work that he does from his clues are more like the blue rose clue. There's that dancer scene. Do you remember that from Firewalk with Me? It's with Chris Isaac, not with Dale. But Chris Isaac sees this character, and I forget who's in I think it's Kiefer Sutherland's in the car with him, and he's explaining to him like, oh, well, her purse, she had this kind of purse, and then she was wearing these kinds of shoes, and like it was like this weird, like you said, kind of empathic communication of like putting together these pieces.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So it is cool. I do actually think that stands out. I will say that I'm not sure the combat stands out particularly well. I mean, I think it's kind of fine. It's not great. It's not super polished. I'm playing on the PS3, and I have one of those, third-party controllers, which is not good. So it's been a little tricky for me to do the combat at times. Like normally it's not a problem, but then I think in the hospital, one of the guys has a shotgun, and that guy definitely got me once. And that's a lot of, that's almost a start over situation, getting hit once if you're close enough. What are you? I mean, it's very RE4. It's very much like stop to shoot. You can move. I think you can move if you're using a sort of hand-to-hand weapon like the knife or the
I haven't even tried.
Yeah, I believe you can move when you have those, so you're not locked in place. I think you can move around, but then that's actually kind of hard to do, to actually do the combat and do that. You know, yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot more to say about the combat. You've done more of it at this point, so I wanted to at least get
the
your
the sawmill's pretty frustrating at times. I think I've so far gotten the sort of distance and pacing of it, so I'm basically trying to compensate for the bad parts of the combat by how I encounter, how I engage. But I have an additional, and people roll their eyes on this one, but I have an additional criticism because I am playing on the Switch, and everyone knows that I hate those analog sticks because they're so terrible, and so it's very difficult to aim at all. So I have been heavily leaning on the lock on, but of course you can't do headshots if you do the lock on. So it's kind of mixed blessing. So, but it's to be honest, the only places I failed have been the QTEs, which are I mean, hey folks, there's like traditional. I mean, it's of its time, I guess, but the end of the
they were already getting pretty long in the tooth by 2010, I think.
Yeah, so you're right. I think it's
like 2004 was God of War, right? I mean, it was definitely, although this was a game that, like we talked about last week, had started in 2007 and then had been rebooted. Maybe it was carryover from that part or whatever. It's hard to know.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I mean the quick time events, I'm always surprised when they happen. Like it actually even happens in the profiling section, although they're not necessary to do. Like after after you pick up each clue, after you pick up each clue, you can basically look and see, what part of the puzzle did I just get by hitting the X to start profiling. X for me, to start profiling really quickly. And you'll just get so what you're seeing in those profiling sections, to go back, is there's basically a video that you don't have, that's very fuzzy. Like you can sort of see some outlines on you, maybe get a little bit of the audio, mostly the voice lines that are happening there. And as you pick up the clues, you kind of, more of that fills in, you kind of get more of it. So you can sort of see which pieces you've just picked up as you pick up the various pieces, just to clarify there. I realize that.
Yeah. And I've stopped actually watching them as I get them.
Yeah. Because there's not really any point.
Yeah.
And you don't even, I don't think you often get any money for doing that or anything like that. So there's really no need. Just for people who want to do it.
Because I'm such a min-maxer, though, I have started to try to aim rather than lock on, so I can get some headshots, because you get more money for the headshots.
Oh, you do, yeah.
For obviously, because it's a zombie game, but they've done a little bit of help for you in some cases, because they have some of them they've been backwards, like in that sort of creepy horror way, and their head is kind of center mass. But anyway, it's too bad, because I think we probably talked some about it with Alan Wake as well, but it's like there was a lot of combat in Alan Wake, and it's better in Alan Wake, but not too much better.
Yeah.
And it just kind of ends up extending the game in a not fun way, which is just unfortunate. So for this game, for Deadly Premonition, so it's there. I don't know, like if there are longer protracted combat sections than the Sawmill, then I definitely am going to be frustrated, because that was a very long section. You are doing the combat while collecting profiling clues.
Yep.
So you're going through the whole thing, and and so you're, and then it ends with a really elaborate QTE sequence. And if you remember, do you want to talk about this at all?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I do remember it. I mean, I do also remember it as being probably that there might be one towards the end that's quite bad as well, but this one I remember being like, whoa, this is I don't know if I'll get past this because of my frustration point in the game when I played it in 2010.
Yeah, luckily the QTE section, when the boss for the boss, there is a great I guess I'll say device that they introduce in that section, and I'll get to in a second. But yeah, but at least the QTE section in that boss area is the same sequence. So I
Oh,
failed
right. So you don't
multiple
have to.
times, but
Yeah.
I did memorize it eventually, and got through it that way. And unlike some of the games where they just change it on you, so
Well,
it's
and it was random in the first part of the game. If you didn't succeed against your first encounter with the robed figure,
oh yeah, I didn't
that
realize that.
that
Okay.
part was random.
Okay, that makes me
So
nervous then. I
yeah,
This one definitely stayed the same though for a while, but yeah, so they're leaning on it too much. I think we've probably even talked about Shenmue at some point, right? This probably was another influence on the game in some way. But the ending sequence of getting out, do you remember the ending sequence getting out of the well, I'll talk about the device that they introduce
yeah, do
because it
that
leads
first.
into that. But
Yeah.
there's one section, so he's unbeatable at this point, the guy in the red raincoat. He's whatever. He's a supernatural whatever. So there's a sequence where you hit a dead end room and he's coming after you, and it's a great like shining moment where he's bashing through the door, and they cut to a picture in picture of
Oh yeah,
him
yeah, yeah, yeah,
in first person bashing through the door. Maybe might be third person there, but he eventually goes into first person. And then they show you, and they tell you to hide. And there's multiple places to hide, kind of like Alien Isolation in the room, like in a locker or whatever. And then you obviously have to hold your breath like you do in Alien Isolation.
right, right.
Um, as he's walking, in that one dream sequence, they introduce it in this game with that little kid. And so he's walking through the room, and then he eventually leaves. I forget exactly how it ends, and then you get out of there. But then, as you're getting out of there, it turns into this running sequence that you were running toward the camera,
Yeah,
which is the worst thing of all
yeah,
time.
yeah. I hate those.
And you're like, there's
It was
obstacles, so
one
you
of
have to
those in
like,
Beyond Good and Evil too, and I was like,
oh, that's right, yeah, you have to
yeah,
climb over, so you have to climb up on things that you can't see, and so it's terrible. And then you
yeah,
also have to dodge him throwing his axe at you with a
yeah,
QTE.
yeah,
But the coolest thing about it is that they have this picture in picture of him. So when he's in the room searching for you while you're hiding, they go into first person from his perspective.
yeah,
It's really neat and
yeah.
really,
Really
really
is neat.
unexpected and clever. And it's like, wow, that is cool.
Yeah,
So that's like, it's one of those surprising moments where they just wanted to do this, I guess, and
yeah,
they did it. So I
yeah.
assume this
No,
is their
it's.
own engine. Do you think?
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it is. I don't think they credit any engine at the beginning. I'll look it up while we're talking, but my recollection is that's very common for engines to be custom in Japan. So I will look it
Yeah, I
up
mean,
again.
especially because it's got open world,
Yeah, it's got
streaming and
all
things
kinds of
like that.
things.
So it's
Yeah,
just such a weird, yeah, such a weird. But yeah, the picture in picture chase, and then the tension of that sequence hiding, but seeing um, his first person point of view is super super interesting. So that was a fun way to end that sequence.
it doesn't list an engine and sort of the sort of I don't know what they call this, but the sort of box with the sidebar with the details. So I
Yeah,
would have
yeah.
to assume that it
It
is a
seems
custom engine.
custom. Yeah,
Yeah, it would be very
it's
unusual at that
got
time in Japan.
it's got the jank
They did use
of a
physics, it says, so which would have been
yeah. Those gurneys, man, they definitely roll.
they
They
definitely roll.
roll in your way.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't see another engine mentioned in here. So, one of the things I wanted to call out, speaking of the red raincoat, is possible film reference there as well. Have you seen Don't Look Now, the Nicholas Rogue film? I want to say like 73 with Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland.
No. Mm.
Oh, classic horror movie. Kind of more of a giallo kind of feel. Very paranoid.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, it's actually about, and another thing that brings it to mind is that Sutherland's character is also sort of got um, some sort of empathic, mental power. He has premonitions, it seems, including at the beginning but at different points during the film. It's a great movie. Yeah, you should totally watch. I mean, it has that sort of slow, like New Hollywood feel, where it's not moving. Although I think Rogue was British, maybe Dutch Rogue, or ROEG. So it's a little slow paced today, but it's definitely got paranoia and one of the most beautiful, sort of romantic scenes between a husband and wife. It's a sex scene, but it's not super. It's just different. It's a great movie, fantastic movie, well worth seeing again. I watched it.
Well, they're clearly movie buffs.
Oh,
he
yeah.
is or something. I don't know much about Swery, and we know that Kojima's obsessed as well. So
Swery's a definite huge film guy.
Yeah, I mean he talks. Yeah, the interstitials. I didn't know what the little audio cue was when you're driving that just appeared every once in a while, and I guess it's when you can talk to Zach about movies.
You can just hit the talk button, whenever that appears. Yeah. And the PS3
quite in depth.
Just says talk. Yeah. He goes. Yeah, he'll go on and on. In fact,
his favorite movie being Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yes, Well, and he had just been talking for me. He had talked about before that Fred Ward. In Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Like, terrible, there was never a sequel. Oh, and that was Joel Grey. Well, his daughter, and he just keeps going. Jennifer Grey was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I'm just like, man, I would probably love having a meal with this guy. Not York. Swearing.
Right.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about both of those elements. I didn't get that far. What I did was I sort of replayed the sort of tree profiling chapter because I was curious about, like, well, how much open world stuff can you kind of do in that time? And it's quite a lot. I could have done way more than I did. I just did a few things, but I went to the RNG diner, and I think it's RNG, but whatever it is, I went to the diner and I met the Olivia there, and he goes into this whole thing about Olivia Newton-John, this English actress, and she made this film in 1982, Xanadu, he just goes and goes. I haven't actually ever seen Xanadu, but he goes and goes about that because she says something about, like, not really loving her name, which is like not a thing you say when you first meet somebody. Hi, I'm Brett. I don't really like my name, but that's the unique flavor of this sort of thing.
Yeah, and again, women portrayal of women in this game is not great, but I think that's what that's coming from.
But I also wouldn't be surprised to discover that, like, the first time he meets Audrey says, in Twin Peaks, Audrey says, I don't really like my name. And, Dale saying something, but Audrey Hepburn, I could, like, it would totally fit in Twin Peaks, so.
Yeah, could be. I saw you in Discord mention that you had played that section 2 different ways to kind of see what the difference is, which is just amazing that the game allows you to do that. My open world section has been weirder. And it's just dawning on me as we're talking about it that it was just, I guess, by happenstance, because the clock's going all the time, and the days, because it keeps track of how many days you've used.
Yeah.
So I guess this just happened by accident. But when I came out of the Sawmill, it was like 10 p.m. or, after dark. And so I had that scene in the dark with the two of them, where they're showing me their backs,
right,
to prove that they don't have the symbol on their backs, and that's where George reveals something's going on with him. Yeah. And so then they leave, and it's in the middle of the night, and I'm at the Sawmill, and the next thing is the community meeting, which there's a community meeting in the pilot of Twin Peaks, by the way, and that's the next day, like at whatever 3 p.m. or something. And so I'm like, what do I do now?
Yeah,
it's like the middle of the night. I do have the car.
You could go fishing, Tim.
I guess so. But then I realized my car only has 8% of gas.
Uh-huh.
And I also didn't realize what flares were for at the time. So I am not close to town. I run out of gas. I have no car,
Nice.
and there's nobody's awake, right? And I have no and I have no and again, I in retrospect, I guess I could have used one of those flares. I guess that's what they do, but I only have two, so I'm kind of conserving them. So basically, I run back to town, and there's no place to sleep. So I also didn't realize what cigarettes do. I guess they pass time without sleeping. So I did use one of those later. So long story short, I eventually get back to town. I have no idea how to fuel the car. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just go around and collect cards and see how much time passes because I got to wait for everybody to wake up. I couldn't even, um, I had no gas. So I think I eventually go back to the sheriff's department and take another car that did have gas. So I did get a car eventually, and I went eventually back to the hotel and slept. But before all of that,
there is a gas station, of course. So
yeah, but I couldn't. The car was out of gas,
right.
So it's like they couldn't get it there. So
that was one of the other things I did when I was in, because it was like at half full when I did it the first time. So I was like, oh, I'll go fill that up and see what else I can, kind of find. It's actually funny because if you do that, it's actually easier. One of the things about the game that's difficult is that the map both on your HUD and the map in the pause screen are both terrible. So to get up to where you're going to question the witnesses, the people who found the body, the twins and the guy who keeps the grounds, I kept opening the map, and then I would like try to follow roads to get up to where, and I'd keep coming to dead ends. And I'd try to follow them back to where I was, but by then I had lost track of where I was relative to where I went. And so I kept like closing the map, reopening the map because it would recenter it on me.
Yeah, I'm nodding a lot right now.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then, but then the other thing is that if you hit the pause button to use the map while you're driving around, if he's talking with Zach, he'll stop. And I don't want to stop that. So it's also like, oh, well, I don't want to do that either. If you don't immediately go up to the witness location with George and Emily, they'll go on their own. So then you're actually free to do whatever you want, which is, I think, kind of the game's signal to you. Like, you can take this time to do what you want. There's a HUD indication that food is available at this time. When you come out of the hospital, it's like 11:45 in the morning. So and when you're driving, like under the map, it's like, oh, from like 11 till 1 or something, 10 till 1, there's food, right? So you can go, get food at places. So you could actually look at the map at that point. I was like, well, I'll just kind of go, if I'm going alone, it's kind of natural to kind of go this way and swing by and pick up a trading card here. Some of them you can't get to because locations are locked. And then I was like, oh, but I also noticed when I played this through the first time that I was low on gas by the time I got up there. So I'll pick up some more gas now so that I have more after I redo that section, the profiling section. So I went to the gas station, and that guy, if you slip him $100, will basically give you a clue about all of the things you can do in town. So every time you give him $100, he'll tell you like, oh, did you know so-and-so, if you bring him a such and such, we'll do something for you. So there's also like a built-in mechanic of like things you can spend your money on that will help you understand the game. But you have to find, like, nobody tells you about this stuff. You just have to find it.
Yeah.
This is definitely a classic. Oh, this is a game like you don't get the first time you play it. So you play it again. And then like halfway through, you discover something new that you're like, well, I wish I knew that when I started again. Maybe I'll start a third time, right? And that's that was my experience back in 2010 or whatever when I originally played it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the map's terrible. To your point, like I basically have shifted over. I think we've talked about this. I'm trying to think of what game we've talked about this on, but maybe many games. I feel like it's a topic we come back to all the time. For me, I really love learning because you're replaying sections and moving around a space.
Yeah.
Especially like in an open space like this, you kind of learn just naturally the way you do in real life, the town.
Yeah.
And so
we certainly talked about it with GTA 3, for example.
GTA 3, you learn
Yeah.
districts and you're like relativity of like this district or that district, and you learn landmarks and stuff. And so, yeah, the map is so bad that it's like, and just hard to distinguish. I also think that it doesn't for me, I actually prefer when maps
maintain north up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so I usually turn that setting on for, and so my brain just works differently.
This one's car or character relevant.
Right. So I'm always confused and turned around and stuff. So what basically my nighttime adventures turned into learning the town, because there's nobody out. I couldn't do anything because everything was closed. I could look now. I don't know if people know this, but most buildings at night, I assume it's maybe in the daytime too.
Yeah, in the daytime too.
You can peek into most key building windows. And so here's York running through the town at 11 p.m. at night, looking in everyone's windows.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're like in there sleeping, eating dinner, doing stuff, cleaning up, which is like, again, to the simulation point, they're in there doing stuff. I think those are spaces you might actually be able to go into later too.
In most cases, yeah.
If it's not midnight.
Yeah.
And so, but then I was collecting cards, I was collecting collectibles and the little metal things. And then midnight rolls around.
Okay.
And the sky turns red, and zombies come out and are running around, and a giant undead Doberman Pinscher comes out, I did have my car at that point, flips my car over, chases me down, and I go on top of this roof, and then I just, because I cheesed it like in Dark Souls, and it couldn't get up there, and I dispatched it that way. But yeah, I don't. This game is weird.
You ran into the blood moon, Tim.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, oh, the blood moon. Yeah, that's when everything resets. So I think it's from midnight to 6 a.m. If you're out at night, then it's just zombies or it's combat. If you're in the open world, I don't know if that's every night, but I assume it is.
Yeah, to me that also has a very which is actually I don't remember if I made this connection last week, but it has a very Silent Hill 2 feel that way.
Oh, I forgot to bring that up last week. I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I did too last week, and I didn't write it specifically down in my notes. I just had it in my head, and I was like, I'll remember that. Totally forgot. For two reasons. One is this stuff, but that didn't really come into play last week. The other is the way he enters town felt to me very similar to the beginning of Silent Hill 2, where it's like, oh, well, okay, he crashes his car. The other guy parks at this sort of rest stop, and goes into this gross bathroom and looks at himself in the mirror and then walks way down into town. Right. But it has a very similar feel, and
the town, reason I was going to bring it up last week was just the feeling of a town, in Silent Hill being the town and this one Greenvale,
there's also a hospital, of course, so
right. Oh yeah, that's right.
Pretty common horror trope, but there's one here. So
yeah, it's such a mishmash of different things. Yeah, it's such a weird. Obviously, I'm glad you suggested. I know you've been wanting to play it for a long time. It's just another one of those. Just keep having these unexpected things happen. That I just never would have seen coming. Some of the tropes of the time for when it came out, but also just it's such a weird game in so many ways, and nobody would. I'm sure there's some real, to your point, like direct indie games that have been influenced by it, but nobody's making this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
nobody did even then.
Sadly.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's just people won't fund it, unless you have your own funding to just do weird stuff. So
Well, I mean, and I wonder, as we're kind of winding down here, we don't have any email this week, so we can go a little bit longer. I wonder to what degree you think about this in terms of Kojima, especially with Death Stranding,
yeah,
which to me would be the greater analog
for sure. That's a
than
good
the
point.
ones I've played anyway. Yeah, I haven't played 5 or V or whatever, but I've played the other Metal Gear Solids,
Or whatever.
and I haven't played really any Death Stranding. Though I watched you play a little bit, and I've seen some of it, and I have it installed currently. So one of these days I'll get to it.
It's a perfect example. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is the AAA version of somebody being allowed to do this, because
yeah,
that game is bonkers as well.
yeah,
Even just the concept on paper, it's like, why did that get funded? Oh, it's because it's Kojima.
yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, do you think it's just that? I mean, and are there similarities? Like it felt to me like that's kind of an open world game, right? With,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Well, I think the similar, yeah. I mean, obviously not direct in the. I mean, it's horror and stuff, but there's some. But I more mean that it is very unorthodox concepts
yeah,
being put into kind of modern design paradigms. Drink. Um, uh, I hate that word, but I can't ever think of a better one
yeah,
at the moment. And then just with its own kind of tonal, tone and style that is just unlike anything else out there,
yeah,
and themes as well. So yeah, it's not one for one, but it falls for me into the category of like very few people would be allowed to do this kind of thing. Um,
yeah.
so, and
Okay.
luckily, I mean, I think in this case, yeah, it's interesting to see because I guess Suda, we know that Suda, they're collaborating now, and Suda falls in the same category of also getting the green light to do kind of what he wants or do interesting things. And there are definitely others,
And
but
I also think they were at a time where it was still relatively cheap. Like the bets weren't huge,
sure,
and so
that's
I think
where
that it makes a
yeah,
big difference, right? Because
that's what
Suda
I
around this time, let's see, 2011, I think the Wii comes out, so that Travis
no more
touchdown,
heroes.
yeah, No More Heroes, is exactly where I was going. Is like one of those games where it's like, oh yeah, nobody makes only
Yeah,
Suda 51 makes this, or his one he made a survival horror game that actually was mechanically pretty interesting. I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up for next week. But
not
which
the
had
lollipop one, was it?
no, not Lollipop Chainsaw. There was this light dark.
Oh yeah, right. I didn't play that.
Yeah, and I can't remember what it's called. But it's I should just look it up now. I might as well. I've already looked up something this week.
Well, yeah, and yeah, I think there's that. The other one that probably people are yelling at their podcast devices is Remedy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Remedy has gotten themselves into a position where they can, you know, do they've gotten the credibility and they've had enough successes to be able to not write their own checks, but to to do interesting things. Obviously, with Sam's guidance, but as a team, so they fall into that category too.
Yeah. It was Shadows of the Damned.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
play that.
I did, and it is pretty interesting. It does have some parts where you're like, "Yep, that's Suda 51 right there." So there's
Yeah,
definitely times where I'm like, "Are you kidding me with this stuff?" But it was pretty interesting, and like I'd rather have something a little zanier, even if it's far from perfect.
yeah,
I do really like the bigger swings, and it's unfortunate that we don't have. But it's hard to find these, I guess, is my point. I don't necessarily know that they're not even out there, right? It's just hard to find them. And it's certainly hard to get them funded. So it's you're not going to see them from the big studios for the most part rather. So
yeah. And the interesting thing, so to the point, I'm thinking about Death Stranding a little bit more, and we don't have to obviously go into that game specifically, but as it applies to Deadly Premonition, the interesting thing that's dawning on me now that I think, and this is just my own opinion, I don't think I can reference any other sort of like more editorial opinion on this, but the thing about that I would compare Deadly Premonition and even Suda's games to some degree, because I think oftentimes they're not mechanically polished enough for me. But like they ooze style so much that I enjoy them to some, enough. But I think with Kojima's games, and partially because his polish level is always so AAA, and so he spends they spend as a team so much money on that stuff. With both Metal Gear, as ridiculous as a franchise as that is, and both problematic but also just zany also about the characters, the moment to moment gameplay is usually very good. Do you know what I mean? Like the sneaking, the combat, CQC, whatever it is, like it's
that
fun enough to play.
Camouflage system and
Yeah. Like every one of the Metal Gear games has something that is very polished as far as the gameplay goes.
Yeah.
So all the other stuff that comes, the story, the characterizations, like all of that stuff, you either like or don't like, but at least you're playing a good, fun game. And Death Stranding similar, right? Yes, there is a lot of hiking and backpacking, but
so your fun, may vary on that. Your wish fulfillment might not be there. If you're.
But the combat's actually very good and polished and tight, and you can, in this sort of Far Cry kind of way, go attack a camp, an encampment or a base, and it feels like a real top-notch game. So I feel like people give them a bit of a pass because it still is a good, mechanically good, fun game to play most of the time. It's just, he adds in things like backpacking, and you're like, I think he stresses people's patience, I think, for some people.
Yeah. And I think it's also, I think that the sort of big publishers, and Sony's probably, the leader on this, are willing to support that to an extent. It's like they're Oscar bait if there were Oscar bait, right? I mean, it's like they're looking for a thing that they know they probably are not gonna. I don't know how much money Death Stranding made, like sales wise, and I mean he's got. I think it did
okay.
Yeah, I mean they did a second one, right? But I think there's also just cachet, of having him, in the studio, right? And I do think that that's like, it's hard, and it's hard to develop those people, in the games industry because it's so collaborative. Like it's really hard, to identify. I mean, a lot of the ones we have are people who've been in it so long that they just kind of got to that position, right? Because they were in it from the beginning. Certainly a lot of people or very early, that we've interviewed or reached out to interview in some cases, and that's also to a degree true of Kojima. He's been doing it a long time too, right? So anyway, that was a little diversion from the main topics, but thought it was worth looking at a little bit.
Well, Sweary's still going too, right?
He's still around. There's they're infrequent games, and they normally don't. I don't actually hear about them. Like if I didn't go look, I wouldn't know. Part of that's
he doesn't
me,
have the support that he needs. Yeah.
So that's another. that's a whole separate problem. Anyway, we love to get your reviews. We don't have any new ones this week. And of course, we love to read your email sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. We're on the web at devgameclub, and my co-host Twitch is at twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
Where these days you're a big Spelunky streamer, is my understanding.
Yeah, real big. Yeah, it's how fast can I die stream.
Yeah. I'm usually holding back, waiting to go because we've been playing in parallel. And then I start going, and then somebody in the chat is saying, yeah, Tim's dead. And I'm like, I just finished 1-2. And they're like, yeah, he died on 1-1. And I'm like, what is happening?
I literally last week hit the wrong button because I was so rusty, and I placed a bomb instead of dropping my dog. Yeah. Tragic.
Nicely done. We also have a fan-run Discord. There's a link for that in the show notes. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast, Aaron Everts, and our logo, that Discord, our merch store, all by Mark Garcia, who's doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes for that charity event in January as well. Have fun angering the monarch this week.
and good night.
Good night.